Hello, and welcome to Rematched, where today I'm going to be going over the top 21 games of 2021. Now, the title is a bit misleading. I'm not going to be going over games that specifically came out in 2021. Rather, my personal favorites as of now. I would like to note that my board game collection is limited, so if there's a game that you don't see on here, it's most likely that I don't have it. That doesn't mean it's a bad game, obviously. That's just a game that I haven't really experienced yet, so bear with me and, my bad board game tastes. So let's not waste any more time because we have 21 games to get through. I'm going to start off with a quick honorable mention. I was not planning to do an honorable mention at all, but I felt it was necessary in this case because I happen to have three kind of mainstream games that I'm going to be including on this list, and they all happen to be bunched up at the very bottom, the last three spots, and so they just happened to push Poor Planet off the list, and I felt bad. You can tell by my copy of the game. It's a bit older. I've had this game for a bit. It's one of the first kind of ones that I got when I was really starting to get into the hobby, and so I just felt so bad pushing off Poor Little Planet. And so I thought I would at least mention it here. I'm not going to talk about a whole lot, only an honorable mention, but I just figured I'd give it a mention. So starting off in the good category of my board games, we have number 21, Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. An odd one. Now, this is not just Trivial Pursuit as general. This is specifically Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. I actually am not a fan of Trivial Pursuit at all in general. I'll get into it in another video way somewhere in the future where I talk about more mainstream games like this. But I'm just not a fan of standard Trivial Pursuit. But a specialized Trivial Pursuit like this, I absolutely love it. I think it's plenty of fun. It is lower down on the list, yes, and that's because it can drag on and just take a while to conclude. But if you are not a fan of Trivial Pursuit, maybe try a specialized version, something that appeals to you. Star Wars appeals to me. And maybe you'll be able then to like it more. Number 20 is a game that is not here. I don't own this game at all. And that game is Stratego. Now, Stratego is, yes, it's a mainstream game. I think the last three on my list were mainstream games. And at that, a mainstream game I don't even own. And to make it worse, I've only played Stratego one time, so why is it here? Well, that's because that one time that I played it, I really enjoyed it. Stratego really seems like a game that I've just found too late. I only discovered it recently, and I think that's really a shame. I think earlier in my board gaming career, before I really was into board games, that would have been a really fun game. Better than Risk. Risk is not on this list. That would have been so much fun. I think I would have had a blast with it. And so I do like Stratego, but because of just it's not as much going on as so many other games, it's mainstreamness. Unfortunately, it has to be number 20. It's still a good game. Still a good game. Even with one play, I can tell I would like that. But it's probably not a game I'm going to get unless I get some specialized version of it. Number 19. The last of the mainstream board games on this list. It is chess. It's just a chessboard. I'm not even going to show you the pieces for chess because chess is such a universal game. I would argue the most popular game of all time, and I think it deserves a spot on this list. Chess is something, it's one of the few board games that you can just display. Just components-wise, you see that it's almost just as much of a display as it is an actual game itself. But speaking of the game, I'm a fan of chess. This is not just here out of respect or anything hokey. No, I am a fan of chess. I'm actually a huge fan. There's an app where you can play sort of a speed chess where each of the pieces have like little timers on them. And so you don't take turns back and forth. You just go on a cooldown. Once that piece is cooled down, you can move it again. So you can move all these different pieces. You can like dodge attacks. It's crazy. It's called Ches if you want to check it out. but I just really have always loved chess. I like the pieces and the different movements they can do, although some games can just take ages and ages and ages, which is why it's lower on the list. And it just doesn't have, it's a simple game with a lot of complexity, but on the surface, you don't have as much complexity as I would quite like, which is why it's here. But still, number 19, great spot for chess. Number 18 is Wavelength. We are now out of the mainstream games, and we're in a party game right now. Wavelength is going to be a game where you are going to have a dial like this, and you're going to try to get people to guess based on your clues where this dial is going to line up. You're going to want to get them right on that 4 right there, but of course they're not going to see it. And so through your clue, they're going to need to try to line it up somewhere along here. I'm just giving you a brief synopsis just so you can get an idea of how it's played and see some of the components. I didn't do that earlier as those other mainstream games, it wasn't necessary. But anyways, Wavelength is a very fun game as far as party games go. Party games can be dumb sometimes and just not for people that are really, really into board games like me. But Wavelength is an exception to that. It's similar to The Mind. I think it's the same people even, where you're trying to kind of get with what the other person would think. It's that kind of mind thinky thing that just makes Wavelength fun. It's a party game, that I enjoy playing. Again, it's a little lower on the list. It does have its limits. It can get, any game that has cards like this that you're having to pull from. It can get repetitive and stuff. So that's a downside. But overall, Wavelength is really good. Number 17, and the last game, the last one of the good section of my list, is in Vino Morte. I've actually done a review of this on the channel. I will link that in the description if you'd like to check it out. The review did very well, actually, as far as my reviews go. It did surprisingly well. I might do more reviews of card games in the future, but it's a ridiculously simple game. You're going to have wine, and you're going to have poison cards. You're going to have a dealer who's going to deal them all out to each player. And then once they have been dealt out, each player is going to decide whether they flip their card or trade it with another player, and you're going to slowly eliminate people. Very Princess and I almost said Prince and the Frog. Very Princess Bride. Where you're trying to pick, ooh, would they put that in my cup? Would they not? This game could just be complete randomness, but that thinking aspect makes it fun. But for the most part, let's be honest, it is complete randomness. But this is just my personal definition of a starter game. When you're like, okay, I need to start with something small, board game night. Let's start with Vino Morte. It's a classic. It eases people into it. It's super nice. So that's just an easy ease-in game. So I really like that. But again, it's only in the good section, just like all the other ones, because it is limited by simplicity. The replayability of the game is not entirely there. This was actually way higher on my list earlier. And then I kind of had to look at it and be like, this game has its moments, but for the most part, it's not a game you play a bazillion times. You kind of play it with a new group of people, and then after that, you play 3 or 4 games, and you're kind of done with it for a while. And so that does hurt the game on my list, but still, great little game. Also, look at the size of this. This can fit in your pocket. Easy to take. You don't have to carry around a box. You don't know the mood. You just take this. Boom. So we are now moving out of the good section, and we're going to be going to the games that I consider great. But before that, I will let you know that this is a different setup kind of video. These ranking videos, and a little more off the cuff, just kind of me talking about different games. So please let me know what you think about this. Tell me what you think about this nice wood floor too. But without further ado, let's get on to the games that I consider not good, but great. Number 16 is Disney Codenames. Doesn't have to be specifically Disney. I will specify that. But any Codenames with pictures, Disney just happens to be the one that we end up playing the most. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Codenames, you're going to have a whole selection of cards laid out, and you're going to have one person trying to give clues so that you can guess those cards, different hints so that you can pick the correct cards, match them up together. This is a perfect example. I could say fish, and you're going to say, oh, that one and that one, those are both fish. You know that's not a fish. Except, of course, there's going to be another team that you are competing against, so that's going to make it difficult, and there's some interesting tiles here, and you can accidentally select the other team's tiles. There's a lot of crazy stuff, but I'm not going to go into it too much, because if you're watching this video, you've probably played Codenames. You probably at least are aware of Codenames. I do have some mixed opinions on Codenames. It is one of the games on my list that I have marked with Burnout. That means that I'm just burnt out of this game. That means I've played it so many times to the point where I've kind of been like, it's not a game that I can sustainably play for that long. And so I'm a little bit, as of now, I'm a little bit burnt out of this game. But that does go to show that the people that I play with, they like it a lot. And so I'll explain to you why I consider it a great game, why it's up here at number 16, even though maybe it's not my personal one that I super like. Don't get me wrong, it is a great game, but it's really here because so many people that I play with just enjoy playing it and want to play it all the time. And I would argue that that still counts as being one of my favorite games for these reasons. It is a favorite of mine, not because I personally really like it, but because it is a reliable game, a game on my shelf that keeps coming out to play. And so because so many people want to play it, it makes it one of my more favorite games. Hopefully that makes sense to you and justifies why it is here. I don't want to waste any more time on Codenames though, so let's get on to number 15. Number 15 is an interesting one. Godzilla Tokyo Clash. Look at this artwork. That's one thing this game has going for it. That is absolutely gorgeous artwork. Godzilla Tokyo Clash, unfortunately, is a game that I have not gotten as much play as I would have liked. Every time I've tried to play it, the people that I've played with, for whatever reason, this particular game has been confusing, and as I don't even want to get into it, it's been rough. It's been rough having to play this game and explain the rules. It's for some reason been one of the games that I've more struggled to go through, more struggled to teach, more struggled for people to understand. But that aside, all that aside, it is still up here on the list because, look at this. Look at this. The components are phenomenal. The game itself, super fun. You're going to have all these different cities, tiles. You're going to have stuff like this, buildings on it. And you're pretty much trying to gain points by destroying the city as Godzilla does. If you are a Godzilla fan, I will say this is probably the best Godzilla game ever. I would definitely get it. But during the game, you're also, of course, going to be able to fight each other. You're going to have these cards over here, and this is the part that's most similar to Unmatched. This is the game that I have that is most similar to Unmatched. And that is because of this card combat, where you're going to be playing a card, your opponent can choose to defend, and those cards are going to do different things and throw your opponent around. But what really makes this game cool, I think, is that you cannot get eliminated. You can get thrown around and crash through buildings and all that. But at the end of the day, you will survive, but you'll still take, your hits. They'll still give the other player points for hitting you. That's a great mechanic. I find the game fun. The components totally help. I always end up playing as this guy because he is the lamest one, but look at him. I love him. I love him. I don't remember his name. That goes a lot, but look at this guy. Amazing. Unfortunately, just a game I can't quite play as much as I want, which is why I can't justify putting it any higher on the list. But I do really enjoy this game. Number 14 on this list, and still in the great category, is Survive Escape from Atlantis. Now this is a game I think a lot of people love, so maybe it's a little bad that I have it low, but this is my list, and so I can do literally whatever I want. With this game is fun. I'm not even going to take it all out, but here you can see the board. You're going to have boats on there. There's going to be an island. The island is going to be sinking. You're going to try to get your boats away over here, but of course there are sharks and sea monsters and whales that will make your life miserable and try to make you lose. This game is pretty much known for just being brutal. This game is a game that you're going to play, if you're okay with people just completely sabotaging you. That's the whole game. So a few people that are a little more sensitive to that, maybe stay away from this one. This is yet another game that I have marked with Burnout. And any games that I mark with Burnout, that's usually a good sign because that means this game that I picked out, it latched on and the people that I'm playing with really like it. But that also does mean that I don't like it enough to be able to play it over and over and over again without getting tired of it, which is unfortunate. I do really like this game, but to be honest, it's here just because I tend to never do well in it. I seem to always, because of the nature of the game, it's always like, I did everything right, I planned everything, and it all went bad. And so I have a little bit of frustration, a little pent-up aggression towards this game, but this is still a very fun game, which is why it is here. Number 13 is Tsuro of the Seas. Now, this may not look like a copy of Tsuro of the Seas. This may look like a copy of Freddy Fish 3, The Case of the Stolen Conch Shell. And that is because it is a copy of Freddy Fish 3, Case of the Stolen Conch. You know what? I'm not going to say it. It's hurting my tongue. But if we open up anyways, we can see the board here. Wow, isn't that great? This is it's bigger. It's the camera makes it much smaller. Whoa, now it's bigger. Okay. In this board, you're going to have all these different tiny little ticks. You can kind of see them there. You're going to have boats. You're going to be sailing around this huge map. Just pretend it's massive. I do not have this game with me, obviously, but I do own this game. Just because it is not with me currently does not make it any less of a game. This game is really all about surviving. You're going to be placing different little tiles, and you're going to have to maneuver your boat around without crashing into other boats or crashing into sea monsters. Those are really bad. That's the addition that makes Tsuro different from Tsuro of the Seas. Tsuro doesn't have sea monsters, so if you're going to get one, I recommend getting Tsuro of the Seas, because why would you not have sea monsters? It's a very slow game. It is a very simple game, but in that simplicity, it's very fun still. And simple is just nice. I like games that are just easy to teach. I think that's always nice to have a couple games where you can just say, it's this, let's just start playing. You're good to go. And it really is a fun game. The art is gorgeous. The theme is really fun. I like moving my little boat around and being like, I'm going to have to turn that. And the sea monsters add a good bit of randomness that Tsuro just doesn't have enough of, which creates these moments where your boat's there and you're like, crossing your fingers that the sea monsters don't move and just eat you. And so that adds a lot of fun as it's slow elimination thing. It does have player elimination, possibly early player elimination. So maybe a little rough, especially if you're playing, because you can play with 8 players with this. It's insane, but it is still a very fun game. Not quite complex enough to make its way higher up on the list, but still a solid game that I enjoy. Number 12, still in the great category of games, we have Harvest Dice. Now, I will asterisk this, okay? I will qualify this. This is not a Burnout game. This is a new game. A game that I've actually only gotten this week, believe it or not, which maybe you can claim irresponsible for me putting on the list. It's my list, so who cares? We're going to open up this right here. Let me give you a good look inside. You're going to have dice. You're going to be rolling them. These are all going to be your vegetables. You're going to have to fill out your little vegetable garden here. This is a roll and write game. I wanted to add a roll and write game to my collection. Not a genre that maybe I was super interested in, but I felt, you know what? If I'm going into board gaming, I should really have a roll and write game in my collection. So even though I've only played 2 games of this, I still really like it. First impressions, great. But that asterisk with it being the new game means that it, as far as other games on the list, this one specifically can really vary as time goes on and my opinions of it change. I did try to adjust for that ahead of time, maybe putting it a little lower than maybe how it feels, trying to get past, that general excitement that I have for a new game. It is simple, but there's definitely a lot of complexity in the different kind of points you can get, in different ways you can do that. And despite seeming like it doesn't have a lot of player interaction, when you play with a lot of people, you maybe don't get direct player interaction, but you get this indirect fun thing where they're taking your dice and you're like, There's also piggy powers. Not going to get into that, but that's crazy. Very cute theme. Really solid theme. I am happy with it overall. And I think it's a great game. Probably not good enough to get into the next category. Maybe not ever, but still a solid game. Number 11, and the last game, the highest ranking one in my great category, is none other than this big, massive box that's hard to even fit in frame. Star Wars Legion. This game is so intimidating that my camera just completely fell off of how I had it propped up here. That is how insane this game is. Unfortunately, this is only the base set. This is a war game. This is a game with a bunch of little tiny guys in here. I'll try to give you a good look. I mean, look at that. Crazy. This is a game where you're going to be assembling all these great little Star Wars fighters. Here's Luke Skywalker. You can collect more. There's plenty of them that you can buy and assemble and make it so you can make more crazy, diverse armies. This is the only war game that is of any interest to me because it is Star Wars, and I absolutely love it in concept. And the reason I say concept is because there are a couple elements of the game that I just find kind of dumb, and so when I play, I just don't play with them. And then also, I just don't end up playing all that often. War games, to be honest, when you have stuff like movement rulers, they are just a pain to get people to play. People don't want to play super long games where you're using rulers in the game. That's just not an appealing thing for most people, which is unfortunate. But because of that, I can't rank it any higher. It's honestly insane that it's this high on my list, but I just absolutely love the idea so much. And in playing it, I do really enjoy it. I'm not just saying it just because of the concept. I do enjoy playing it. It's just only here because I just simply have not played it in ages, and I just rarely get to even play it. But I still absolutely love this game. It feels like it really gets at the heart of like a Star Wars battle where you're moving guys around and they're attacking, they're shooting at each other. And then you have someone like Darth Vader come in and it's like, okay, we're safe as long as we're not right next to him. There's so much fun stuff that comes along with this. They have the speeders. The speeders are great. They just zip around and are like crazy, get behind people. And there's so many cool things that you can buy for this that I really wish I could buy to expand it, but I just don't play it enough, which is why it's only in the great section. Now, real quick, before we get on to the amazing section of this ranking, I'd real quick just like to ask you that if you've made it this far, please go down and give me a like on this video. Also, please comment what your favorite board games are before you maybe see mine or after. Tell me what you agree, what you disagree. That really means a lot to me, and you're boosting the video. And leaving a like also doesn't just tell me that you enjoyed this video. It also tells me that you enjoy content that isn't maybe only unmatched. And so I'd appreciate that feedback as well. So thank you very much, and let's continue on to the amazing category.